Well, this is another video response to Matt. Hope I'm not being too redundant. We've been over some of this before, but we're getting close. The real difference seems to be, or sticking point, there's probably a few differences, no doubt, is that you have a more a less harsh opinion of nature and a harsher opinion of intelligence, and I'm exactly the opposite, and so I'll try to explain that difference. In your video you sort of implied that it was that greed was a symptom of intelligence, and greed is a symptom of nature. Nature created greed. Intelligence is the cure. You sort of imply that there's no intelligence doesn't provide a guidepost or some sort of ethical rules or whatever, that without creating some kind of dogma, which is always dangerous, and I would agree. But I think intelligence does provide the capacity to logically deduce ethics, and and part of that deduction is just the simple recognition that we are natural animals, that we have these different levels of consciousness, of development, whatever you want to call it. We have these crude reflexes that are highly overreactive and they're intelligent, but they're very stupid by comparison. And we have this conditioned brain that defines largely our unchangeable preferences and prejudices. People's sexual taste, even their sexual preference, and all manner of other things. Our sense of style, our sense of comfort, our sense of humor. A lot of things are a creation of, or written into our brains, programmed through conditioning, and that conditioning happens in a very sometimes erroneous and unintentional and unintelligent ways. We are conditioned because we can be conditioned to hate a breed of dog because the person walking the dog was an asshole, and vice versa. We could be conditioned to be afraid of a certain person because their dog scared us. I mean, it's this kind of, it's almost dream state associations that are not very well connected sometimes, and that can create, now it has created an intelligence in us that is very imperfect. And then we have this final piece of intellectual hardware where language functions, and where we are able to conceptualize abstract ideas, and because it's still working through this original brain framework, we have emotions tied to these conceptions, to these ideas. We can learn to desire information. We can learn to want to be productive. We can have all kinds of emotional attachments to ideas because we learn to verify an idea or a conception, and once we validate it, we associate it with this positive emotion. It becomes part of our conditioning. It becomes part of that learned emotional reaction. And so then once we've established that, it all depends on how you process information. And so a person can easily modify their conditioning in the sense of they can't change the original conditioning, but they can have this new more flexible conditioning on top that has the power to temper the older stuff. And so if I put the question logically, I mean, I can say that yes, there is a way to determine what is good and what is bad objectively and logically, because we can make certain presumptions, whatever you want to draw conclusions, define certain fundamental facts. And so I've started this with the two basic ones, and I didn't mean to imply that we, when I titled it "There's No God, Just Physics," that physics was going to be God. I just was intending to support the idea that that physics runs the universe, that there is physics taking place inside our brains. That well, let me get to. I wanted to get to the logic part, so I'll do that first. Then we get to the billiard balls, which I disagree with you on. I mean, it definitely is, very consistent. The conversion of energy is a very consistent process. There isn't much spontaneous going on, if any. But anyway, so let's just say that we'll just do a preview of the next few basic facts of life, and maybe the third one would be is the knowledge we have that we are equal, that your feelings, your consciousness is equal to mine. It's comparable. It's in every significant way comparable. And so if there's a decision to be made about who should get a broken leg, or who should suffer, or who should do this, or who should do that, it would be ludicrous for us to compete over that, because we both lose. If somebody, there's no winning. I don't win by you suffering. You're not going to win by me suffering. Suffering is the enemy, not who does it. And so just by taking one simple fact of a recognition of our equality already changes how we have to perceive our own needs and gratifying them. We always have to measure them against, am I stealing comfort from somebody else to gain comfort for myself? Am I depriving somebody else to satisfy myself? I mean, the question has to be asked. Once you're a logical, honest person, it's a valid question, because you cannot deny that other consciousness is just as needy and just as deserving, and just as the suffering they're enduring is no less real. And so we just can't live our lives anymore. If you recognize that simple truth, you just can't live your life anymore only considering what makes you feel good, what makes you comfortable, because the balance in the equation, you're inevitably going to be wasteful if you always assume you come first. It just, so anyway, I'm just saying that there is a way to objectify ethics. It's not some sort of thing that people must feel. It's just an understanding they must have. If you can't, if they don't recognize the full consequence of a statement like equality, then yeah, they're not going to get it. But it's the logic is simple, and the logic grows from that in terms of how, like I said, if you're going to really truly measure productivity, you have to say to yourself, well, gee, are my needs extravagant? Are somebody in just because of my perception, because I have this lived in this comfortable culture and society, have I acquired a very extravagant need base to acquire comfort? And maybe that's my fault. Maybe I need to change my perception. Maybe I need to be satisfied with a lot less. Maybe just by twisting or turning a few knobs in there, I can look at a tree and just be happy to see a tree. I can enjoy life and experience life without needing too much from life. And well, anyway, I don't want to get to the billboard balls. Got 30 seconds. Well, physics, whatever quantum theory comes up with these little subtle little quirks that we can't explain, blah blah blah. No, because physics is very reliable. Computers don't go on a glitch because atomic particles did something random. Okay, they're very consistent. The physics follows the rules. The billiard balls do move just in a predictable fashion. The fact is, we are predestined from the moment the Big Bang banged, and the end.